Rosjke, you can start now.
Welcome everybody to Mothers and Daughters Around the World, where we're celebrating International Women's Day. The first thing I want to say to you is that this conference is being recorded and it will be posted widely on social media. So please do not share anything that's confidential. If you have a question, put it in the chat room and send it to questions. And at the end, after we've had all our speakers, we will see how many questions we can answer. Also, if you do not want to be seen on the recording of this conference, please turn off your video and mute yourself so that we can block all background noise. This conference has been organized by both Women's Mother-Daughter Coaching International and Women's Federation for World Peace, UK. So let me start by introducing myself. I'm Rosjke Hasseldine. I'm a mother-daughter therapist with an international private practice. I have two books, which is The Mother-Daughter Puzzle and The Silent Female Scream. And I've presented my work at professional conferences, women's conferences. And recently I was interviewed on Huffington Post UK podcast on the Am I Making You Uncomfortable podcast. If you're interested, have a look, because it's directed at women and it's got some really, really interesting topics. So Mother-Daughter Coaching International came about through my years of work with mothers and daughters. And I realized about 5 years ago, actually, I realized it was time to pass on the baton to other women. So at Mother-Daughter Coaching International, we teach courses for mothers and daughters, particularly the Your Mother-Daughter Puzzle course, which is an online course for mothers and daughters based on my book. And I also teach professional courses for mental health professionals, coaches, therapists, social workers, psychologists who want to work with mothers and daughters. And we also provide a referral service so that where mothers and daughters need help, they can go to, and the website is motherdaughtercoach.com, where there's a Find a Coach page where my graduates are listed by the country that they live in. Women's Federation for World Peace is a non-governmental organization in general consultative status with the Economic and Social Council of the United Nations. It aims to create an environment of peace and well-being for future generations and peoples of all races, cultures, religions, through education, advocacy, and empowerment of women. And their website is WFWP.org.uk. So if you want to know more, and I would really encourage you to sign up, if you haven't already, sign up to the Women's Federation worldpeace.org.uk newsletter to find out, because I met Mitty and Tina probably 15 years ago, if not more, when I was living in England, and they do incredible work. So I really encourage you to sign up to the newsletter. And if you want to know more about mother-daughter courses or just information, so the courses, have a look at motherdaughtercoach.com for courses, or to find resources where you can find help. But also my website, rosjke.com, I have plenty of videos and articles for you to read. So there's plenty of resources out there for you. So we're here to talk about mothers and daughters, my absolute favorite topic to talk about. And today we're going to really understand how the mother-daughter relationship is a powerhouse for change. You might think, like, why is that? Well, if you look at the mother-daughter relationship as a mirror reflection of what happens to women, how women are treated within the family, within the society, within the culture, within religions. then you can see that actually the mother-daughter relationship is a story of women's lives, story of women's history, story actually of women's generational experience with patriarchy and sexism and gender inequality. So that in a sense is why the mother-daughter relationship is often marginalized, because of its power to expose the reality of women's lives. Early on in my work with mothers and daughters, I learned that I had to, when I had a mother and daughter in front of me, I learned that I had to understand what was going on between them by understanding what was going on for women in their generational family and also in the society and the culture that they were living in. I had to understand the gender role stereotypes that they had to comply with. I had to understand whether women were heard or silenced in their family, emotionally supported or emotionally neglected. Through my work, I've created an exercise called mother-daughter history mapping. And if you want to do that, there is some very detailed instructions in my book, The Mother-Daughter Puzzle. It's an incredibly powerful exercise because it really paints a picture of what it means to be female in your family. It not only tells the story of what happened in your mother's life, in your grandmother's life, in your own life, but it also looks at the themes that are passed down from grandmother to mother to daughter. Themes like women's needs are silenced. And that's an incredibly global common theme of women's needs being silenced, emotionally silenced, women being invisible, women expecting to prioritize men's needs, men's goals, men's desires over their own. Self-neglect, self-effacing behavior, martyrdom. But it also shows how strong, resilient women are and the good stuff that gets passed down from grandmother to mother to daughter. Think about it for a moment. How can a mother and daughter really listen to each other and understand what they're each feeling and needing and saying and desiring if the language of what women feel, think, and need is not spoken in their family? If women are not asked what they think and feel and need, how can a mother and daughter have that conversation? So they end up arguing over their unspoken voice. It's the same with emotional support. If there is no language in the family that communicates the support and what women need and the support that they need, how can mothers and daughters create a conversation and a relationship that voices what the support they each need? What I find is that mothers and daughters end up fighting over who gets supported, who gets heard in the relationship, because there is no understanding that all women deserve to be heard. All women deserve to be supported, which is fundamentally, I think, a human right. And the same with limiting gender roles that set mothers and daughters up to fight over their lack of freedom, their lack of choice, their lack of autonomy, and particularly the mother not being a person in her own right. I call this the culture of female service, where women, particularly mothers, are expected to give, and be responsible for the care of everybody else. How to look after mum. And that sets mothers and daughters up to fight and to argue and to fight over who gets to be heard. So as I say to my students, when you work with mothers and daughters, you are challenging women's lives and helping create a world that listens to and supports women and girls. You're facilitating generational change. We've got an amazing lineup of speakers today, where you will hear the way mothers and daughters are set up to blame themselves and blame each other for relationship difficulties, when in fact, actually, patriarchy set mothers and daughters up for conflict. So a lot of the speakers today will challenge that blame thinking, because in a sense, what happens between mothers and daughters is a reflection of how women are treated. So let me introduce Mitty Tohma, our first speaker. Mitty is European Vice President of Women's Federation for World Peace Europe. She's President of Women Federation for World Peace UK and the Nordic Regional Director. She promotes women's leadership. She addresses UK Parliament on domestic violence and honour-based crimes. She's co-founded the Youth Achievement Awards and the Young Woman's Speech Contest, and that's just a small amount. Actually, I had to make her bio a little bit smaller because there was so much I could say about Mitty. And as I said, I've known Mitty now for over 15 years, and I am delighted and completely honoured that she's speaking to us today. We're in for a treat. So the floor is yours, Mitty.
Great. Thank you very much, Rosjke. I'm just going to pull up my PowerPoint. Please bear with me. Thank you for the very nice introduction. Okay. So, can you, that's it, good. So, now I'm going to speak about, I deliberately chosen the title Daughter-Mother Relationship, not the other way, mother-daughter relationship. Today, I do not want to talk about us as mothers in relation to daughters, but it also wouldn't be relevant for all women. Today, I want to speak about us as daughters in relation to our own mothers. We are all daughters. Half of the human populations are daughters. Every woman is someone's daughter, though not necessarily a mother. What connects us more than anything else is that each of us stand in the position of a daughter. I believe this is worth some consideration. Our mothers are not just mothers, but also daughters to their mothers and also to our grandmothers. Actually, we are all tied together in this way within 3-generational relationship. Every daughter's first example of what it means to be a mother is what it means to be a woman is her mother. The relationship between a mother is like a window through which we can realize what standing a woman has in the family and in society. If you want society to see and treat women differently, we need to perform a paradigm shift within ourselves. In order to carry out this shift, it is important to understand our daughter to mothers relationships, as well as that of our mothers to our grandmothers. Friendship and rivalry, love and envy, close souls. Few relationships between two people are so diverse, changeable and conflict-ridden, and hardly any shape us with such lasting effects. It is worth being honest about our relationship to our mothers, even if sometimes our moral concepts don't want to allow it. However, when we closely examine these relationships with our mothers, with their beautiful and difficult experiences, it is not about accusation or about realization, gaining insight. We don't evaluate, we observe. Looking back in time into the not too far distant past, we learned our close female forebearers experienced war, hunger, illness, and many other difficult situations which shaped them and changed them. They did not receive any help in dealing with all these difficulties. What do we actually know about our mothers and grandmothers? Do we all know their forenames and maiden names? Maybe we do. Maybe we need to think about it. But what else do we know? What were their Dreams. Did they find support in realizing those dreams? How were they treated? What violence did they have to endure? What were their defining roles in their lives? Who nurtured them in spirit and mind? If we are honest, we find we can answer only few of these questions straight away. Now let us look at the same question to ourselves. What are my dreams? And what did I receive in support in realizing them? How have I been treated? What kind of violence did I have to endure? What are the roles defining my life? Who nurtured my mind and spirit? The answer, in answering these questions honestly, we become aware that there is a lot of hurt within us. Women hurt each other because they were hurt themselves. Is it surprising that women can be so hateful towards each other, so quarrelsome? Our first step towards true womanhood must be to heal those injuries and act naturally as daughters. Another issue is the role we have been pressed into and behavioral patterns we have unconsciously acquired. Without being aware of it, we live according to the example of our mothers have set. It is good to think about this. Some roles have been allocated have heavy consequences. How often have I heard prostitution is necessary because men need it, especially when their wives are ill or just not up to it anymore? We still consider sexual relation as a duty of a wife owes to her husband. As little girls, we learned to behave in a way that would result in acceptance and loving attention. This is very deep rooted behavior which often unknowingly follows. As women, we are very influenced to how others see us. It is rare for a woman to have a good self image. Our view of ourselves is limited. We have some ideas about what we can contribute and more of what we can't do, but loving ourselves. When we accuse ourselves or have low self esteem, we become a target, an attack for blackmail. The criticism of others confirm our accusations, and thus we allow others to suppress us. Healthy self love protects us from becoming victims. We need this healthy self love, love in order to make free decisions, to say no when we are pressed to do things that we don't want to do. We need to be free of opinions, of judgment, and of others, free of words, you can't do this, or you'd better do something else and useful. These words have caused us to bury within us so many of God given treasures. If we accept ourselves, we can reawaken them. We are only truly free if we look at ourselves as God looks at us. Once we accept ourselves as unique and valuable human beings, we will be able to extend the same acceptance towards other people. Deep within our hearts, we know that we are all spiritually connected and we will be able to recognize the precious divine aspect of each other. Once we are aware of our true identity, our hearts will be open and will transcend all limitations. We will then know who we are and find our true dignity as women. When it will, then it will not be so important anymore what others expect of us, and we will not need others' approval to know what we are doing is the right thing. Our goal in considering all these points is to renew our daughter mother relationship, to bring to life the strength and beauty of the relationship. We will then be able to bring back that what we know from ancient cultures, the passing on of the knowledge, wisdom, experiences of women from mothers to daughters. Even today, we possess internal riches and experiences which we can pass on to the next generation as valuable nuggets of wisdom, not found on the internet. The healing process of our relationship with our mothers provide a foundation for our relationships with the next generation of women, as well as a peace amongst women. Therefore, I would like to direct our eyes towards the vision that will give us strength to face the process of healing. Mrs. Dr. Jahan Moon, the founder of the Women's Federation for World Peace, said in one of her speeches, quote, "What is needed now is the feminine logic of love," close quote. Now is the time to approach ourselves to recognize that we do possess these special values, abilities, and talents that are so desperately needed in our society today. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I got many of these ideas and thoughts from Rosjke's books about what she's been sharing. And I'm very grateful that we are addressing the issues of mothers and daughters. It is very essential that we can really go to the core point of what affects women's lives and how we behave in society, within our families and within the wider community. So thank you. Thank you, Rosjke, for giving me some time to share. Thank you.
Thank you, Mitty. Wow, where do I begin in terms of summarizing, because I want to actually point out everything you said. I mean, two things that really stand out for me is first, knowing your mother's story, your grandmother's story. I see, like in the mother-daughter history mapping I do, the lack of knowing is shocking and so sad about how women's lives are not talked about enough. And particularly the dreams, the unrealized dreams. And I say this to clients, I say this to students, like, would we have the world today if our mothers and our grandmothers were allowed to fulfill their potential outside of motherhood and realize their dreams and what they wanted to bring to the world? Would we still have the world we have today? I suspect not. And in terms of your last bit, it's so important that we, recognize the value and the skills that women already possess in terms of creating a world that's good for both genders, all genders, and for mothers and daughters. So thank you, Mitty. So our next speaker is Ying Li Huang. She's a psychotherapist who grew up in China but now lives in London. She is a self-worth counsellor in private practice, helping women to transform the not good enough syndrome into inner strength and resilience. And her website is liveyourworth.co. I know Ying Li because she's one of my graduates from my course, and I am absolutely delighted. She has got a lot of wisdom to share with us. So thank you, Ying Li. Floor's yours.
Yeah, thank you, Rosjke. Yeah. Aaron, can you please put up the first slide for me, please? Thank you. Yeah. Hello, everyone. And my name is Ying Li. I'm a psychosynthesis counselor who works with women's self-esteem and self-worth issue. And I live in London for over 10 years, and I originally come from China. Because of this background, I'm very interested in the influence of culture and family and people. And I work with lots of women who deals with these issues as well. So it's really my privilege to take part in this event and share my experience with you. So I'm just gonna talk about my views on mother-daughter relationships in Chinese culture and according to my clinical and personal experience. So Aaron, may I move into the next slide? Thank you. So I know many people might not be familiar with this concept, filial piety, but I believe not many Chinese people can really escape from this influence. basically, filial piety determines the moral value of people in Chinese society. And it is the idea of putting families' needs above one's own with deep respect for elders, ancestors, country, and leaders. So the basic principle surrounding the filial piety is that adult children are responsible for the well-being of their parents. So supporting and serving one's parents is seen as a duty and obligation. So you can see from the picture in the middle shows that from ancient time, and Chinese culture has traditions of respecting and obey the elders. You obey, comply, bow, and kowtow to your parents, grandparents, teachers, etc., anyone who holds authority. So there is a consequence to it if you don't comply, and you will be punished to various degrees. But I'm not going to give more details about how we're going to get punished because of the time limit. So I want to talk briefly about the links between filial piety and narcissism. Actually, one of my clients shared with me her observation between filial piety and narcissistic behavior. And I also believe there is a connection between filial piety and narcissistic character. So such as under filial piety, children are not seen as a separate and independent person. A mother will want to be possessively close to her daughter and often regard her daughter as her property to meet her own financial and emotional needs. And this behavior is very alike to narcissistic behavior, such as seeing other people as extension of the self to provide emotional or financial supply. So in summary, I think filial piety is a breeding ground of narcissistic personality. And Aaron, can I have the next slide, please? Okay, I want to talk briefly about my journey with my mother. Actually, I think my relationship with my mother was the biggest challenge in the first half of my life. And it is the very reason that I become a therapist and who I am today. And I hold deepest respect and love for her, but also acknowledge the pain of disconnection with her early in my life. So we were not close at all when I was young, and she was strict and had high expectations on me. I struggled a lot in my early lives and had all these crabs like depression, anxiety, eating problem, and low confidence. Until in 2011, a book called Will I Ever Be Good Enough opened my eyes to the family dynamics I wasn't aware of. Then I gradually embarked on the journey of self-healing, and meanwhile battling with the culture of filial piety and with my family and with my mother. So I had 5 years no contact with my entire family and tribe. It was painful, lonely, but deeply transformative as well. So I use this personal space to study and heal the childhood wound. So I think the toughest bit was to deal with my guilt, which is byproduct of filial piety. It's like you're supposed to look after your parents, be obedient. Another challenging part was to process anger and criticism from outside and within. And in 2019, I reconnected with my mother as I feel ready to see the result of my healing. So I went back to see my mother and we stayed together for 3 weeks. Our relationship completely changed. I forgive my mother in my own way, and she expressed her apology and remorse as well. Since then, we become very close and intimate, and she's no longer a drain or energy empire to me. She became my fuel and very strong backing to support me to pursue my dream. So this is my story in a nutshell. But I think with the great challenges like they thought, we normally will gain great gift and blessing from it as well. And I feel like through this journey, I've gained peace of mind because my mother is no longer allowed harsh music playing in my mind, and I feel at peace. Secondly, I feel grateful for what I had and I'm having, and I feel a sense of love to life, to myself, to my mother, and to lots of mothers as well. And very importantly, I feel this journey has bestowed me the ability to facilitate emotional healing work for women, especially those who don't have supportive relationship with their mother. And because I know what it was like to be controlled, manipulated, jealous of, and projected onto. But I also know how to get beyond the pain and regain intimacy with myself, with my mother, and regain the joy for life. Irene, may I have the next slide, please? Yeah, and I would like to I want to make some changes about this page. I want to mainly talk about, because of the time, I want to talk about how does filial piety affect mother and daughter relationship. So the picture in the middle that you can see how love flows backwards from younger generation to older generations in China. So you can see the grandma massages for the mother, and the massages the granddaughter massages for the mother, and the mother massages for the grandma. So you can see this corresponds with Rosjke's training on mother and daughter attachment about river of nurturing flowing backwards. So this is epitome of a typical Chinese family phenomenon, the reverse way of nurturing, which can be reflected in mother and daughter relationships. It's like daughter needs to take care of mother's needs and feel responsible for mother's well-being, and often feel guilty if mother is unwell. I would say filial piety literally creates a codependent, enmeshed relationship, the lack of respect of personal boundary, and also lack of clear communication. So, Irene, may I have the next slide, please? So I would like to share a few hidden tips for people who are currently going through this journey. First of all, be really patient, and cultivate patience is very crucial for healing. And because this is such an arduous journey, there will be ups and downs, internal and external struggles, but it's also deeply rewarding. And also be really self-compassionate and self-loving in each step. And thirdly, be okay with all of your feelings, especially anger, and learn what anger is trying to tell you. And then next, work on the guilt, learn your boundary, and practice saying no. Then the next is like using regular meditations and journaling to regulate your emotions and gain more insight and self-love and self-understanding. So I didn't put on the slide is I think I know the most important factor that has changed my relationship with my mother was that I had no expectations of my mother would change or be in any other way than who she is. So I think in order to be not attached to the outcome, what we want our mothers to be, that need lots of deep healing work, including self-love and self-compassion, so as to let go of expectations. So the last, I think, is important to find a good guide or therapist, a role model who can teach and model you all above lessons. Okay, Irene, may I have the last slide? Okay, so this is the end. And I just give a brief overview of what I see in mother and daughter relationship in Chinese culture or any similar culture. And this is a very deep topic, and I cannot really talk more details due to the time restrictions, but I do hope you can find something useful in this talk. And I also welcome those who resonate with me on the topic or resonate with me to contact me or have a discussion. And thank you so much. Yeah, I would like to hand over to Rosjke.
Thank you, Ying Li. Wow, again, I'm going to be saying that a lot today. I think what you described there, I know sort of fits the Chinese culture, but actually coming from a Dutch family, Dutch family, exactly the same dynamic. And actually the dynamic of like you said, the river of nurturing flowing backwards, where daughters are expected to take care of mum's unvoiced, unacknowledged needs is global. So there may be differences within cultures, but it's a hugely important theme for us to recognize and to see that is like you beautifully said, it's the knock-on effect of particularly the mother or women not being allowed to say I need, I desire, and being a person in their own right. So So thank you. Thank you. Okay, so the next person that's going to talk is Bibi Jameson. So Bibi Jameson is a psychotherapeutic counsellor and couples therapist in private practice in London. She's lived in various parts of West Africa and the UK, and Bibi has a keen interest in multicultural families, and her website is restoretolove.co.uk. Bibi is one of my grads, and she too has an enormous amount to share. So thank you, Bibi, for being on this conference. There you go. I'll leave it to you.
Thank you, Rosjke. So thank you for that introduction. I'd like to start by saying that, yes, I am proudly Nigerian, born and raised in Nigeria into a very privileged home. I may not be the picture of Africa that you were fed to by the media. Images of starving children, terrorist attacks, or corruption is what we see on the news. And yes, these things exist and they do matter. But I believe it is important to change these one-dimensional scripts about where we come from and tell our stories, to weave a rich tapestry of different experiences which make Mother Africa so beautiful. I'm speaking today from my perspective, a woman who comes from a strong community of women. I grew up surrounded by many mothers, aunties, and sisters. I recognize and appreciate the privilege and access my parents gave me to a good education in Nigeria and different countries in Europe. I am also a wife to a white Scottish man and a mother to 2 mixed-race teenagers. My daughter will be 14 this year, and my mother is currently visiting from Nigeria. As you can see, this subject is personal. I am a mother and a daughter straddling 2 different cultures. In my training as a psychotherapist, I had to write a case study examining my attachment style. Most attachment theories are based on Eurocentric families, man, wife, and child. They do not take into account community, and in my opinion, they shame and blame mothers who do anything other than gaze lovingly at their child and drop everything else to care for their children. This theory, written by white males who have never carried a child in their womb, brought out my inner rebel. You see, I was raised by many mothers. I was nurtured by many breasts. And so the topic I'm speaking to you on today is the village it takes to raise a daughter. The Nigerian mothers I know are farmers, fisherwomen, traders, businesswomen, nannies, housekeepers, caterers, lawyers, doctors, artists, hairdressers. The list goes on. They are multifaceted, and in a lot of cases, I've seen these women go to work with their daughters strapped behind their backs. Yet, with all this empowerment, we are still seen as sexual objects. It doesn't matter how many degrees you have, you may still be expected to sleep your way to the top. It doesn't matter that you're still a child, you may still be expected to marry a man old enough to be your father. It doesn't matter that you are educated or uneducated, rich or powerful, poor or powerless, your husband may still have a right to beat you. Our strong community of mothers do the best they can to protect their daughters from this misogyny. Our growth and empowerment as women is still reined in by ancient cultural scripts that see women as inferior. We are in survival mode in Nigeria, and when we get here to the UK, we are in survival mode too. Our community is gone, and we face macro and microaggressions as women, and even more as Black women. Yes, the emotions I see easily expressed from my mothers and sisters are anger, judgment, pain, rage. Expressions of joy, encouragement, and unconditional acceptance. Tender words of love are what we daughters long to hear. Our mothers are worn out from being in survival mode. As my friend Anya says, they teach us to cut off parts of ourselves to fit into male paradigms of what women should be. I say to you today, these words on behalf of all mothers who, for whatever reason, couldn't express it enough. You might need to hear it. I am proud of you. I see you. You matter. Your voice matters. I'm doing the best I can. In my experience in Nigeria, when we gathered as women to release that breath we held in male company, to share secrets and impart wisdom, to complain about the latest thing the men in our lives had done to hurt us, these messages I heard were how to be a good wife, how to apologize to your husband and parents-in-law, how to hide money, how to manipulate our men into thinking they are the decision makers. The husband is the head and we are the neck that turns the head. How to be the successful, empowered woman outside and be meek inside the home. How to keep silent. How to smile even when you feel neglected and hurt. Our circle of trust had been silently infiltrated by how to live our best lives without antagonizing our antagonizers. I remember sharing in one of these gatherings that I was upset my husband didn't take me to the cinema as he had promised. The women I was with hissed at me, laughed, and told me, I don't have real problems. You see, to get into this club, you need to have real problems. I had lost my right to speak, to be seen and heard, to be a wife who had a right to demand my right to love and romance and equality, just as they had lost their rights in their own homes and workplaces. I was expected to just be thankful for what I have, put up and shut up. When our daily lives at home and at work are a battleground, that we cannot allow ourselves or others to enjoy their right to a mutually supportive partnership, manipulation becomes the only way we know how to get what we want. We cannot understand that love and kindness can be freely given and received. And so we approach relationships from this position. These are the conflicting messages that our daughters receive. Protect yourself. Real love and equality does not exist. I understand this because our mothers are in survival mode. They have to be strong for us, to protect us, so much so that the desire to have a life without struggle is seen as a secondary luxury. First, we learn to put up our guard, and then to be happy victims in our role as mothers and wives. And to do that, we must stay silent. But times are changing now, and we need to listen to that small, still voice that has been silenced for many generations, the one that says, you are important, you matter. What messages shall we bring to our daughters now? When I gave birth to my daughter here in the UK, I had an out-of-body experience. I saw my dearly departed auntie, another one of my mothers, stood before me. In flowing brown traditional robes, she held my daughter in her arms. She smiled and swayed and danced to talking drums, as if to say, this one is ours too. She comes from us, a long line of strong women. And as she placed my daughter into my arms, I came back to earth and heard my doctor telling me to push. And out came my daughter, Iviana, who's probably on this Zoom call. She came out with a roar announcing, see me, I am here. I see my daughter, and I know she is here. So what stories will my Iviana hear, especially now with this virtual community of TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, and all the rest? Our voices matter even more. The messages we give our daughters matter even more. I ask you to join me in raising Iviana, and I want to join with you in raising your daughters. Let us be the village that raises daughters whose needs are heard. Let us be a community of women who share wisdom on how not to be silent. Let us fan the flames of our feminine energy and listen to these emotions that say, I am hurt, I need, I feel, I desire. There is an age-old question that restricts us as women, as daughters. A question I was asked when I announced my engagement to my white husband. The question is, what will people say? If I had not rebelled against that question, my beautiful daughter would not be here today. What will people say restricts us from listening to our inner voice, from voicing our needs and desires. Can we change the script from telling our daughters, what will people say, to asking them, what have you got to say? When I look at my beautiful daughter, I do not want to hide from her. I do not want her to be so culturally respectful and subservient that she cannot tell me her truth. I want her to expect to have needs and for her needs to be supported and met. I don't want her to cut off or silence her voice or reshape parts of herself to fit into the box society has put us in. I want her to flow like my auntie's robes and dance to the beat of her own drums, supported by a community of women like you that say, you matter. We have defended and protected ourselves for so long that we sometimes become rigid. We are on high alert. I wonder if we can begin to lower our guard, like the curves on our bodies become soft and yielding, so that we can hear and empathize with our emotional needs and our daughter's emotional needs. I want my daughter and yours to know her worth is not in making millions of money or in the shade of her skin. Her worth is in her voice, her vulnerability, her strength, her humility. I want her to blend in and stand out, to go into any culture and be able to relate, because there will always be a village of mothers, aunties, sisters, regardless of location, bank balance, race, whatever. There will always be a village of mothers for our daughters. I encourage you as mothers, daughters, aunties, and sisters to use your voice. Tell your stories to one another. There are so many stories yet untold, and in these stories lie our healing and understanding of one another. The process is not easy, and when one mother falls, another one can pick her up. We are, after all, born to many mothers. Thank you.
Thank you, Bibi. Oh, the picture you have painted. Oh my goodness. You've just painted what has drawn me to do the work I do. The picture of, because I know in my family, and I think too many Western families, the idea of one mother is to, rather than the idea of generations and many mothers. And imagine a village and a community of mothers who have retained their voice, that know their truth, know what they need, and their daughters do not need to listen for their mother's unvoiced needs. A bit like what Ying Li was saying. Imagine how the world would be different if our daughters were born into that kind of female community of women who felt entitled to speak their truth, to tell their perspective on things. And I also liked your, the male theorists who shame women who, particularly mothers, who don't drop everything for their children, for their babies, and are shamed for, in a sense, also saying, actually, I think that voice within, especially the therapy world, needs to be magnified. So thank you. Very much appreciated. Okay, Dawn. So Dawn grew up in, Dawn Pollitt, she grew up in America, has a BSc in physics, mathematics, and teaching. She was president of her local Service for Peace chapter, love that name, organizing projects aimed at breaking down barriers between cultures, generations, and religions. I'm really looking forward to what Dawn has to say. So Dawn, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Rosjke. Let me just share my screen. Okay, can everyone see that? Hello and good afternoon to everyone who's joining. My name is Dawn Pollitt, and I have 3 beautiful children, 2 daughters and a son, and I often think about the mother's unique role in the family as a mother myself. I've worked with Women's Federation for World Peace for many years now, and the founder, Dr. Hak Ja Han Moon, never ceases to amaze me. This is because she has 14 children of her own, 7 sons and 7 daughters, and I think this quote from her recent autobiography, Mother of Peace, really sums up the mother's role in the family quite well. What comes first, life or love? When asked this question, most people answer that life comes first. After all, they say, only when there is life can there be love. In my view, it is love that comes first. Thinking externally, we define our birth as our starting point, but love came before our birth. Our body and mind came from our parents. If not for the love of our father and mother, we would not be in this world. We should never give up love, even if it means having to give up our life. We were born through love, so we should walk the path of love and should die for love. I'm talking about eternal and unconditional love, true love, not temporary conditional love. To find true happiness, we need to practice true love. True love means living for the sake of others, serving others, not being served. True love means to forgive endlessly. These are some pictures of my own family here. This is my grandmother and my mother. This is my mother with my sister and myself. This is me with my firstborn daughter, and this is me pregnant with my lastborn daughter. Before my own mother was born, her mother gave her love from which she could come into existence. Her mother and father's love created her. Before I was born, my mother gave me my first love. My mom reminds me how she even took me to see a Michael Jackson concert when I was 8 months in her belly. My deep connection to my mother's musical choices stem from this, I'm sure. Even before each of you were born, there was an atmosphere of love surrounding you. While in your mother's womb, you received your first love. The mother is in such a unique role. She is the one to give you that first love by singing songs to you in her belly, rubbing her belly, talking to you in her belly, making sure she eats the right foods. She was loving you unconditionally already before you came out. This unconditional love that Mrs. Moon describes extends to you while you are a baby. A mother lives a life of total sacrifice for her children. If you are a mother yourself, you know this to be true. She sacrifices her body, her sleep, her nutrition, giving and giving again wholeheartedly without once expecting a return. During the first 3 years, especially, a baby receives its mother's unconditional love and nurturing. Even while a mother cleans her baby's poo and vomit, she does so with no desire for anything in return. When a breastfeeding mother nurses, she does not measure how much milk she has given and tally it up in order for debt to be paid by the baby as it gets older. A mother could literally run into a fiery pit without hesitation to save her children. I truly believe that this mother's first love, this love of giving and giving again, really sets the stage for how that child can develop their own heart to love others in the future. If you know what real love looks like, you can more easily model it yourself. Each of us builds bonds within our family that will empower us to broaden our love for one another inside and outside of the family. Our love within our family is the encapsulation of the love for our nation and the world. Thus, within our family, we need to receive training in heart. The way of heart will become our essential way of life, and then we can apply that heart to our community and to our nation. So the family is the school of love, where we learn from our parents, siblings, how to love our neighbors, our community, our nations, our world. Does anyone not want world peace? This is the most fundamental building block to a peaceful world. It starts within the family. And a mother's role as an educator of love to her children and husband is such an essential role in the family. The mother is the moral educator in the family, the mediator of forgiveness and harmony. When two children fight, right, they always go to you as a mom, right, to help them sort it out. The comforter, the grace giver, the one who creates peace. Mothers have a magical power to create harmony and soften hearts. This education can be extended to others outside of my own family. For example, I can relate to other women my mom's age as I would my own mom with a heart of gratitude. When my own mother sacrifices herself totally for me, I can reciprocate as a daughter with gratitude and filial piety. Not forced filial piety, right? Ying Li covered this in her talk. But when you give somebody 100, when somebody gives you 100%, do you want to just pay back 90%? No, you want to give them more than was given to you. This is the heart of a daughter, true filial piety, who wants to repay her parents even more than she has received, not out of obligation, but out of love. Similarly, I can relate to other people my grandmother's age as I would relate to my own grandmother. I can relate to other children the way I relate to my own daughter, with a heart of this unconditional love. This is true for every relationship in the family, not just between a mother and daughter. So the family is really the training ground to relate to your society and to your world. Personally, through my own mom, I could really see how much she's given of herself without any expectation of return. My mom's love language is gifts. She's constantly giving and giving despite living so far away. She always tells me, I'm so sorry this isn't enough. I want to send you more. When of course she's given me so much already. But that's her heart, wanting to continually give and give until she's exhausted herself, at which point she'll still want to give me more. And I've learned so much from my mom. Her love extends beyond her own personal family. She has worked for more than 15 years in New Jersey in a poverty-stricken area. Every year with her own money, she buys backpacks, pens, pencils, school supplies for children who cannot afford these materials. She scours stores during her free time, looking for any little item a child might like or need for Christmas or for the start of the school year. She has donated over 1,000 backpacks, and each time she finds one at the store, she'll say to me, I can just imagine a little girl or boy walking around with this. This is just one of the plethora of things my mother does for others outside of our own family. Her heart is naturally spilling into society as a result of having learned how to love her own children in the same way. And I really believe that this heart starts from the parents, especially from the mother in the family. And naturally, as a daughter, we look up to our mother and pay particular attention to how she does things, as this will one day be our own role. How many daughters around the world have used the phrase, I'm just like my mother, or the apple doesn't fall far from the tree? And I think this is how it should be, how God intended it to be. How our mom loves us is how we will love our own children and how we can love others in the world. And this brings me to my third and final point, which is leaving a legacy of this true unconditional love. There is a branch of science called epigenetics. I'm a physicist, right? Maybe not a genetic specialist, but you can Google it if you're curious, which says that your behaviors and your environment can cause changes to how your genes work, turning your genes on or off. Your actions and choices affect the expression of your genes for future generations. For me, this is mind-blowing stuff, right? Scientifically, how you behave now affects how your genetics are passed on. So let's apply this to a mother. The mother has the opportunity to shape the future through her daughters because nothing ever severs the love of a parent for their child. And genetically, right? Scientifically, she can sculpt the way her genetics are expressed in her children by what she's doing. A father has the same opportunity through his sons, from both parents to each of their children, not just mothers, right? Also fathers. But the power of a mother can have a rippling effect for many years to come, a legacy of giving and giving again, modeling grace, patience, forgiveness, and this all-embracing love. Showing their daughters how to love, unconditionally love in all relationships, as a daughter herself, as a wife, as a mother, without expectation in return, can make for a very powerful future. And what's amazing is that this can carry on from our mother to us as daughters and to our daughters and their daughters and so on. A real legacy of creating peace within each woman's family, peace with her husband, with her children, and spreading this outward to the world. This legacy of love and the standard of serving and living wholeheartedly for others starts in the family unit, and the mother's role is so very crucial. If you are a mother or a daughter, or even a father or a son, I implore you to think of how you can model this true love that seeks to live for the sake of others first. We can see this very clearly with a mother and her newborn baby. Even when a baby is pulling its mom's hair and nursing, my daughters did this so much, right? Sticking their fingers up my nose or pulling my hair out, biting me, right? When I was breastfeeding. The mother continues and continues to give and give all that she has and all that the baby needs. If we make it our prerogative to create beautiful families based upon such unwavering love, right? In all relationships, as a father, right? As a husband to her, to his wife, any relationship, as a son to his parents, anything. If we make it our prerogative to create beautiful families based upon such unwavering love that we learn from a mother, I believe world peace is as good as already achieved. Thank you.
Thank you, Dawn. What an amazing family you come from, actually, where love flows freely, which is just, and I love your picture of the power. It is true, the power that women do have, that mothers do have, and that the power that the family has in terms of deciding who we're going to be and what kind of world we have. And I know with my clients, it's not a lack of love often that's there. The love between mothers and daughters it's wired into us. After all, the daughter spends 9 months soaking in the mother's body, as you rightly say. So it's not often it's about a lack of love. It's often they need to learn how to communicate the love that's already there, which you so beautifully talked about. So thank you. Very appreciate your message. Right, now we've got Britney Scott. So Britney Scott is a licensed professional counselor, mother-daughter relationship coach in America. She works with women and teen girls who struggle with anxiety, trauma, and relationship issues. Her website is Unshattered Counseling with 1 L if you're not in the USA. So unshatteredcounseling.com. Britney is one of my graduates, and she blew me away in terms of her depth of understanding of what it means to be African-American mothers and daughters, and particularly in America. So I'm really looking forward to hearing what Britney has to say. So floor is yours, Britney.
All right, thank you so much, Rosjke. I'm really excited to be here. So glad I was invited to be here and share this with you guys. So my presentation is going to be about mothers and daughters relationships in the African American community.
Sorry. Excuse me, Britney, sorry.
Okay, I was muted. Can you guys hear me now? Okay, I thank you guys. I hope you guys can hear me now. My presentation is titled Black Girls, It's Time to Grow Up, and it's going to be about the African American mother-daughter relationships in this community. Okay, so I'm Britney, and my presentation is going to show pictures of me and my daughter. I just became a mom 3 months ago. I am the oldest daughter in my family. I'm a licensed professional counselor, and I got started in this work with mother and daughter relationships after I started as a counselor. I was working with a lot of teen girls and just young adult girls as well. And I was learning that a lot of the things they came into my office for was stemming around their mother. And I had no knowledge in how to help them get through that. And that's how I found Rosjke and became a mother-daughter coach and kind of learned all that, I know about this and have been able to help them. And so I just want to share with you guys what I've learned through working with Black teenage girls and young adults, and what kind of I've learned shaping the relationship. Okay, so like I said, no matter what came into my office, it was always centered around mother. Something was missing and I wasn't really hitting that target. What they needed was to rebuild that relationship with their mom. And when I started addressing this, their healing just kind of exponentially just kind of grew, and it was really amazing to me to see. And so what I saw in the differences is that in this culture, in African American culture, for Black girls, you have to grow up really fast. You don't get to be nurtured until you become an adult. By the time you hit 14 or 15, your mother is expecting you to be a woman, to be an adult, to not need a lot of her nurturing. And I did not see this when I worked with white teenage girls and their mothers. That dynamic is not the same. And I was only seeing it in the Black community, and I was really confused as to why a lot of that was happening. And I kind of did some digging, tried to learn more about what was going on and how to help them. And one thing that kept coming up for me is how society views Black girls. And this came from a study done called Girlhood Interrupted, the Erasure of Black Girls' Childhood. And so compared to white girls of the same age, they surveyed a lot of participants, and these things came up each time. Black girls need less nurturing. Black girls need less protection. Black girls need to be supported less, need to be comforted less. Black girls are more independent. All of these things are not true. Okay, I can keep going. Like, and this is the way that society views the Black girl. And I think it's turned into the mothers needing to be able to help their daughters survive in the world. And so if she's going to survive in the world, I have to teach her now. And the way they've done that is to force her to grow up in the home as well. But that severs that relationship. You're breaking the mother-daughter relationship because you're no longer nurturing the daughter, because the world sees her as an adult. So you have to treat her as an adult. And that's not healthy. And that causes a rift in the home, and daughters aren't being supported in the way that they need to be. And so when I saw this and learned about this report and the studies that they were doing, like, my mind was blown. Black girls, none of these things are true for Black girls, yet this is how society in America treats them. Okay, and so I learned that the Black mother needs help. Okay, nurturing has not been able to be passed down. And when we think about slavery in America, slave mothers are not able to nurture their children because they're out in the field. They were working in the homes. They were, doing forced labor. There's no nurturing of your children. As soon as your children are able to walk, they were out in the field with you. How do we nurture them? And so they need help in learning how to do that, because that hasn't been something that's been passed down in the African American culture. Okay, I have to protect you from the world. I hear this a lot from mothers who I've worked with, and it's like, if I don't protect her, if I don't teach her, who else is going to? The world is going to chew her up and spit her out, is a phrase that I've heard from a mom. And so her way of protecting her daughter from the world is to make her stronger. But by doing that, she took away nurturing. But she didn't realize that the nurturing was removed by her trying to make her daughter stronger in order to survive in the world that America has created for us to live in. Black women are not supported in America. They're not nurtured in America. They're not treated as equally as white women in America. And so Black moms have turned to making their daughters harder, not softer, in order to survive, because there's a society in our world that doesn't support us. Okay, and I don't know how to nurture you. Like I said, nurturing isn't something that's been passed down in the Black community. You have to be able to support your family as soon as possible. Black women were not able to nurture their children because they were forced into labor, forced into slavery. And then once slavery ended and Black women and Black families were given more rights, they still were not treated equal in ways of pay. And so the mother and the father didn't make enough money to support their own family. So as soon as their children were able to work, they went to work as well. And so the Black family has to grow up quicker than the white family. And we are erasing childhood, we're erasing girlhood, and we're entering an adulthood very quickly. And like I said, we don't know how to nurture. That stops the nurturing, and that pulls away the relationships that the mother and daughter needs to be able to create to have a successful relationship, to have a loving relationship, and to have a supportive relationship. And other presenters have talked about this, ones who spoke before me, and that love is flowing backwards. And in this community, love also flows backwards. The mother needs just as much nurturing from her mother, and she demands it from her daughter. And so now we have daughters supporting mothers, and that the daughters are now losing out on support. And then it's basically snowballing because we continue to create the same things generation after generation. Okay, and I learned after doing mother-daughter work with my own mom that my mom was the rebel in the family. My mom wanted something different, and she wasn't exactly sure where she kind of learned that she didn't have to live in this way, that it didn't have to be this way. But she went out and basically went in search of something else. And so in my family, my mom is a first generation college student, and I followed behind her. Me, my mom, and my sister are the only women in our family with a college degree. My mom showed us that there is something else out there for us in America, and that it doesn't have to be the same generations of basic only offering basic needs and only basic needs being met, and showed us that there was more to life than that. And growing up, I was able to be heard. I was able to speak my mind. I was able to talk and get my needs met by my mother, because she knew that hers weren't met, and she didn't want to create that same dynamic with me and my sister. And so my life and my daughter's life have been forever changed because my mom's was made a different choice and a different impact. And so through working with a lot of the women and the teen girls that come into my office, my goal is to help the mother see that you don't have to make your daughter be stronger in your household. Yes, the world from this side here in America is going to not see her as needing love and support and comfort, but in her household, she should be able to get that. And if you're not going to provide that as a mother, the world isn't going to. And so I've seen a lot of relationships changed by helping moms view that inside of your home, your daughter gets to be a daughter. And that's going to help her be prepared for the world that America has set up for us. So I did not create like an ender and how to end my presentation. And so I'm just gonna hand it back over to Rosjke, and I hope that I kind of showed you guys something different that is happening here in America.
Oh, thank you, Brittany. Absolutely. Your message needs to be out there really loudly, because you show so clearly the dots between slavery and what's happening today between mothers and daughters, the systemic racism in this country, in America, and what's happening between mothers and daughters. And I think, you know, Bibi too, what you said, there's a similar message here of, you know, how mothers teach their daughters to survive in a racist culture, to keep silent or to be strong, when in fact, actually, they need a whole lot more in terms of learning how to speak their voice, learning to be themselves, learning to be girls, as you say, Brittany. Yeah, wow. Thank you so much. Okay, so we're up to questions. I've got a couple of questions that have been posed that I could that we could sort of bounce around. And I think, I mean, the question that stood out for me was, how do we help mothers and daughters reclaim nurturing in their relationship? Which, of course, as listening to all the speakers, you actually need to reclaim it for yourself as well. It's not something you can just give. You actually have to own it too, so that it flows easily in terms of owning the right to be nurtured, to nurture ourselves and to be nurtured by others. And so therefore we can nurture others and also receive. So nurturing is a two-way street. So yeah, I'm going to put it out to the panel. I have a tendency in my classes, my online classes, to call on people, but I'm not going to do that today. So, you know, who wants to go first in terms of looking, you know, just a tip that they know they want to share in terms of how we can teach mothers and daughters to create a self-nurturing, i.e., what do I feel? What do I need? What do I desire? And also within the relationship.
Maybe I can say something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really feel that it's really important to understand that there is a process that a child needs to go in order to receive the proper love. We talk about in our Women's Federation the 4 realms of heart and the 4 realms of love. The child needs to receive the proper love when they're a child. And then there's the children's love, where they learn how to share with each other. And then there's the love between a couple that they are able to give to each other. And then, of course, eventually become the parental love. if they don't go through this process, I think it's a very difficulties arise. There is, of course, our body naturally physically grows, you know, from child to teenager to adulthood. But if we don't receive these proper levels of love, spiritual love, physical love from our parents, and if the parents themselves have never received it, it's very difficult for the parents to nurture their children. And I think this can be a real handicap for children to really claim themselves and to find their dignity, to find who they are. Sometimes I think we tend to be looking for our identity of who we are. I think this is a really important process. There is a physical growth, but also there's a growth of love and spirituality. Perhaps because we can't see it so much, we tend not to invest in it so much. So there is a consequence that affects the family, and then actually it'll infect our neighborhoods and our communities and the decisions that we make. Sometimes you can see there's an adult who is fully grown, but you can see their attitude and heart is much more like a child, because they've only received that kind of child's love, and they've never received the proper love that can really form them, their spirituality, their intellect, their emotion, and their will to do the right things. So I think that we have to look more deeper into how mothers and fathers play a role in this nurturing of children, so that they can become good citizens in society. That's the thing that I felt that came through.
Yes, I agree, Mitty. I mean, what you're actually talking about is sort of attachment, in terms of we do need an attachment theories. You know, many of the listeners has probably heard about that, because there's a lot of conversation about attachment theory these days. We do need to feel the nurturing from, and often it is seen as the mother, but certainly fathers as well. And as Bibi clearly says, village, you know, all the aunties and the grandmothers and all the other, and uncles and grandfathers that are around a child. They absolutely need it, so that mother isn't carrying the whole shoulder of responsibility and therefore then blamed when she clearly can't do everything. So yeah, no, you're right. Anybody else want to chime in with something that, you know, they want to add to the conversation?
Yeah, Rosjke, and I can do that. Yeah, because I work with lots of daughters, and they're going to be mothers as well. So I just thinking about these daughters as a moment, it's like how they can reclaim nurture, you know, for them. It's almost like starting from ourselves first. And I feel like it really, really take personal responsibilities for your own emotional needs. And I feel like really practice compassion, self-compassion, self-love on the sideline would be really helpful for daughters, because of this cultural filial piety, and there's lots of guilt that daughters carries in this kind of like Chinese culture, or Japanese culture, even Korea as well. So I think really be honest about your feeling. If you feel like you can't really, you know, do anything about the dynamic, it's okay. Really be honest and honor your feeling, and really asking yourself, do you give out? Do you give your mom something out of fear or out of love? If it's come from a fearful place that your mother gonna withdraw love, or you're gonna get disapproved by the family or the tribe, and really become more aware of what's going on. If you feel like you can really give your mom something, but you don't ask for return, and that's fine. So I feel like sometimes for daughters, there's a danger for us to ramp up to compassion or understanding too quickly. There will be backfired as well. So I think it depends on which stage the daughters are on their journey. But at the beginning, it's really focus on ourselves to self-nurture. And when the time is ready, you are ready to move into the more relational space that to do with your mother as well. And your mother will change. I personally believe it's like if we don't expect them to change, it's paradoxical. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree, Yingli. It's I think you and I had a very similar journey, because I you know, talking about your mum, the same, and in my family, which, even though I grew up in New Zealand, it's a very Dutch family, there was a lot of duty and responsibility and obligation that's placed on daughters. And I think you're right. I had to step back and learn. It's a language of I feel, I need, I desire that just wasn't there in my family. In fact, actively silenced for women, because you're supposed to think of what other people feel, what other people need, and what other people desire, and to help facilitate that as a woman and as a mother. Yeah, that's what you're expected. But so to step back and for yourselves, so that then you can bring it into your own family, but also bring it back into the relationship, I think is vital.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Anybody else? Dawn.
Yeah. I guess because I studied physics at school, right, and mathematics, I always tend to think of things with a kind of scientific brain. And I think we can learn a lot actually from the scientific world that applies to the dynamics in a family. I often do this experiment with my students in class, where if you take a can and you fill it with some water and you heat up the water, basically what happens is the water turns into steam, and what happens is the steam pushes all of the air outside of that canister. And what happens is, if you then close that container, so all the air is now gone, basically it's a vacuum inside, right? What you do is you can take that container and you can put it into a cool water bath. And what will happen is that water that was steam inside will turn back into water, right? Not steam. And what happens is you're left with a vacuum, right? And what happens is after that, the air pressure from outside crushes the can. Basically, it's this, I would say it's this a little bit controversial to say, I think, that if you give 100%, then naturally there is a law of the universe where you will receive. And it's kind of this, it's hard to think like in the moment. I know as a mom myself, I always think, oh, I need this for my husband, or my kids need to give me this. But actually in those moments when I invest myself even more beyond, I find that me giving naturally, totally gives me more in return, if that makes sense. So it's this kind of like relationship of, yes, we need to receive, but not just for the sake of receiving for ourselves, but basically giving, and naturally the universe will compensate you for that vacuum, right? For that lack of things that you've given your heart completely, and naturally, right, the universe just kind of fills that void. So that's kind of my more controversial, I guess, take on that. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Dawn. Yeah, I hadn't seen it in quite the way you describe it in terms of the canister. But then it's about learning that trust that actually it will fill. The trouble is, I think in societies that are highly sexist and patriarchal, there is no awareness of what women need. So where is it going to fill up? But that's the work. That is the work. There is a question here. How can Black mothers nurture their daughters? I was wondering, Britney, BB, would you like to speak to that?
Yeah.
Britney. Yeah.
Yes. I think it comes from a place of knowing that your daughter is a child for much longer than a teenager. And by that, I mean, by the time she's 13, she's not ready to be an adult. And so you have to continue to treat her as the child that you did before she became a teenager. I see a lot of the relationships change as soon as that daughter becomes a teenager. But knowing that she needs you to listen to her, she needs you to create a space where her voice is heard and she can say things without getting backlash. Now, I remember just in my family, a child is seen and not heard. You stay in a child's place. You don't speak on these things. You don't talk to your parents this way. And so that shuts the child down. Create a space, and even maybe it's just once a week, if you're not fully ready to do it just openly. Once a week, give her an hour to say whatever she needs to say to you without getting in trouble. Give her a space where her voice is heard and she can say what she needs to say. And that's going to drastically change the relationship, because she's going to trust you. She's going to trust that you will listen and that she's important and her voice matters and what she has to say is important to somebody else. And then that'll change the dynamics of how she enters the world.
Perfect. I would say that Britney, what you just said applies to all mothers and daughters. In fact, it applies to all human beings, can I say? Because we all desire, you know, we all desire to be, and we have, I think, a human right to be heard and to be understood. So, yeah, and I love your idea. Once a week for, I don't know, hour, half an hour, say what you need to say. Yeah, and shouldn't mothers have that space too? Maybe not to a young daughter, you know, but she needs her own space. This is why I teach the women's power circles, to create a space where women can say exactly what's on their mind and on their hearts without consequence, and then change their mind if they need to, you know. Yeah, that's to me, that's the definition of freedom. So
just want
yes. Yeah, Mitty, and then I was going to ask Bibi if she wants to chime in on this, but
yeah, well,
no,
go ahead.
oh, we're going to do. Who are we doing?
Go ahead, Bibi. Go ahead.
Okay.
you sure? Thank you, Mitty. What I wanted to say is that personally for me, and that's why I do the work I do, I believe that love is the only thing worth fighting for. And I will fight tooth and nail for it, which is what I've done in my life. In terms of our daughters, I really believe in positive affirmations. And if you are the daughter that is feeling a bit criticized or judged or unaccepted, I believe in saying positive affirmations over yourself. It's a little bit, you know, if you're religious, call it a prayer, call it what you like, neurolinguistic programming, because a lot of the messages that we get from our mothers are coming from a place of survival, and they're, you know, it's those harsh words, that criticism. And so when you feel restricted, when your confidence is low, your self-esteem is low, the thing you need to do is question yourself. Is that my voice telling me I can't do this? I'm not worth this? Or is it the voices around me? So when you begin to speak these positive words over yourself, I really believe that you kind of start to find your own voice and your own worth that is not attached to anybody else's judgment. And also, when you speak it and manifest it, you know, I know this sounds airy-fairy, but this is what works for me. You begin to attract your tribe. You begin to attract the people that are going to be in your village. Your mother is doing the best she can. Maybe she doesn't know how to not criticize or judge, but auntie may be able to, you know, your sister may be able to, someone else. You know, I believe that we are all mothers inside. And so what one mother cannot provide, another one will. And you will speak it over yourself and attract your own tribe. And that's why I believe in this global tribe for my daughter and for your daughters. So yeah, I really believe in the positive affirmations, speaking those words over ourselves, especially when we don't feel it or hear it from someone else. That will strengthen our own inner voice and let us know that we are worth something, and attach more value to ourselves.
Thank you, Bibi. Yes, I actually have a blackboard in my kitchen where I have an affirmation, and it stays on there until I can read it and think, how did I not know that? So it's only then does it get erased, and of course it'll be replaced by another one, but I need to learn in that moment. And the one there right now is, what if other people's opinions of me did not matter? I've got a list of what if the other people's opinions, other people, perhaps jealousy, does not matter, does not define me. So yeah, I really like, and I also like your point about this, that what we, you know, in the training we call soft eyes, that our mothers do the best they can with the resources they have at the time. If it may not have been good enough for the daughter, but the mother still, given more resources, given more entitlement, given a voice, the mother would have been different.
Yeah, I just want to say, Rosjke, that
Carry on.
I don't want to underestimate the 3 generational relationships, you know, about the mother, the grandmother, the mother, and the daughter. I think it is a really important institution within the realm of society, but nowadays that relationship is not there. So the wisdom of the grandmother is not there to be passed on to the mother when she's actually dealing with raising up her daughter. So I think the importance of having the 3-generation relationship is really, really important, because the grandmother has been through everything. She has the wisdom to pass on to her own daughter how to raise her own daughter. I think because society, we are quite splintered, and in our Asian communities, we are very much for, parents and grandparents living together in one home.
Yeah.
Of course, there's all the different economical situations and circumstances we have to consider. But ideally, the grandparents, the parents, and the children living together is a very, very important societal aspect. And we perhaps we don't really estimate the value of it as much as in the ancient times or in times gone by.
Yeah.
What we can inherit from each other, and that those inherited traits are the things that will be lasting for, like a legacy from my grandmother to my children and to their children. Yeah. It is really important, actually. Yeah.
I completely agree with you, and I think it's a beautiful place to sort of end this conference, because gosh, the time has gone fast. I mean, during this pandemic, I wish my grandmother had been alive, because she somehow, I wanted to ask her how she got her 3 children and herself through a Japanese concentration camp during the war. And, so when this pandemic hit, I just wish I had my grandmother there, and wish so she could pass on the wisdom that she had gathered through the, horrific things that she's experienced in her life. So yeah, there is so much strength, wisdom, and knowledge that we can all draw from my grandmothers and our mothers. So thank you. All too quickly, this hour-and-a-half conference has come to an end. So I want to thank all our speakers. You have inspired me, and I am sure you've inspired the listeners with ideas and thoughts and entitlement to claim our rights, to claim our voice, and to claim the strength and the love in this mother-daughter relationship. So again, just a reminder, sign up for Women's Federation for World Peace.org.uk. Sign up to their newsletter if because they do a great many events like this and others. Sign up to mine, which is on Rosjke, ROSJKE.com, for any conferences that I organize with my grads, and also articles, blogs, videos that I put out there. Mitty, do you want to say something too? Yeah.
I would just like to acknowledge amazing work that you're doing, Rosjke, with the mother-daughter. Yeah, it is really important. We met 15 years ago, but we invited you to many of our conferences, and the influence that you have given to many of our women is incredible. And I just want to thank you for your, perseverance to really raise this point of the importance of the mother-daughter and the grandmother role in our society, in our families. This is like the fundamental, very important part of building peace, and a good future for our families. And thank you so much. And to all the speakers, I gained so much from each and every one of them. And I'm really looking forward that we can develop something new from this point on. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for attending, and thank you for speaking, and have a great rest of the day.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.